At the heart of every new lens should be the intention of creating something better, and not just the same lens with a different brand name on it, but a lens that truly offers something that no one else does. Enter the Sony 12-24 F2.8 Gmaster lens. What's going on, guys? Dan Watson, and this is Sony's newest lens, the 12-24 F2.8, and there's a lot of reasons to get excited about this. We'll work on any of their full frame or APS-C cameras. Actually, if you do have the A7 III, A7R III, or A7R4, I do have some help guides if you want to go through every menu setting, helping you get started, telling you what it's about, giving you information about how to set up this camera. I've got it all there. I'll throw a little coupon code down below and you can check out those crazy long PDFs going over every aspect of those cameras. But here's a lot of reasons to get excited about this lens. I mean, this is the very first 12-24 f2.8 we have ever seen. And we've seen a lot of ultra wides before. So we've got Canon's 11-24 f4 lens, not a wide aperture. We also have Nikon's 14-24 f2.8. But that doesn't get us as wide on that wide angle. Now, you're probably not excited about those lenses if you're actually a Sony shooter, but you might actually care about the Sigma 14-24 f2.8, which is available in a native Sony mount, or Sony's own 12-24 f4, which has been out for a little while. I did get my hands on and reviewed it when it first came out, and that's a really awesome lens right there. So let me know in the comments below if you want to see some side-by-sides, and maybe we'll do some shootout tests between any of those lenses and this one. But let's talk about this brand new lens from Sony that does what no one else is doing right now. So the lens is clocking in at 1.9 pounds, and that sounds pretty heavy, but Canon's 11-24 is actually about a ½ pound heavier, despite it being an f4. So not too bad from Sony on that one. Also, we have 4 of Sony's XD linear motors. These are crazy fast motors. 4 kind of sounds like overkill, but I guess if you're moving a ton of glass, heavy glass like this, and then also you've got cameras like the A9 now that are pumping 20 plus frames per second, I guess you need some crazy fast linear autofocusing motors for a lens like this. Also, it does have a 9-blade aperture and a maximum magnification of about 0.14 times, which those are kind of about par for the course right here. Obviously, you have weather sealing throughout. There is no filter element right up front, but we're going to talk about filters a little bit more in a second. Also, you do have Sony's custom button, which we've seen a lot, and the autofocus manual focus switch. And actually, it has some really nice linear algorithms for focusing manually. However, when you've got the best autofocus system on the market right now, I tend not to use it quite as often. But overall, we're basically checking all of the high-end specs you would think for a lens like this. So the lens hood itself is actually permanently attached to the lens. We see that all the time because you really need something to protect that giant piece of glass on the front of that. And then also the lens cap will go ahead and mount over the front of this as well. You will also see that a lot of filter systems will mount onto it because you can't actually use screw-on filters with these kind of ultra-wide lenses, and that's pretty much par for the course. Now, Sony does have a filter attachment mechanism where you can use sheets of ND filter. It does come with a template in the lens box, and you can cut something in order to fit into that area right there. Honestly, to me, I'm glad it has it because not all lenses have something like this. However, it just kind of felt cheap and not very high quality to be using ND sheets of paper to be cutting and forming into stuff like this with a template that they give you. I'm sure we'll have some third party or maybe even first party pre-cut ND filters that'll go in here soon, but if you think about it, Sigma's 14-24 also has a feature like this, except you can use real glass ND filters, and it also has like an attachment point with a lock on it. So that just feels 10 times better for a lens that costs about half as much. So I really would have liked to see Sony go a little bit better when it comes to being able to attach ND filters on there. So I did get a chance to take this out, and just like I expected, man, those extra few millimeters can make a huge difference on the wide angle. So here's a shot with a 14mm Nikon lens, and then at the 12mm on a Sony lens, and wow, this is a big difference, even in a small car like this, being able to get a lot more into that image. Now do keep in mind that this is really sharp all the way through. So at f2.8 even had no issues, even into the corners, it's doing pretty well. You will notice quite a bit of vignetting at f2.8, starts to go away for the most part at f4. But there is a lot of distortion on this lens, especially on that wider end. You cannot get rid of it. It impacts almost everything that you shoot. And so especially if you are shooting something that's not linear all the way through, you will absolutely notice a distortion on this. Now, every so often I was seeing this pulsing effect, and I was using the A7R4, and especially on the wide end is when I was seeing it the most. If I zoomed into around the 20mm mark, I wasn't seeing it as much, so it seems to be something that was really only affecting me when I was shooting at that wider 12mm. So typically this would be a lens I'd be using all the time. I do a ton of weddings and events, and it would be great for like receptions or dance floors and all kinds of stuff for getting super wide in the action shots. Also travel landscape, this would be amazing for that as well. Unfortunately, all my weddings have been canceled or postponed for the foreseeable future, and then same thing with travel plans right now, pretty much on hold. But I promise I do have some more shoots coming up with this lens, so stay tuned. I'll get you at least one more, so that's coming up right there. You can also follow me on IG, I'll be posting some stuff with this lens as well. Now, typically I would have a trinity of f2.8 lenses, as we call them, a 16-35, a 24-70, and a 70-200. All f2.8 zooms covering about the entire range you would need, especially for like an event, but virtually everything can be covered under there for general shooting. Now, for me, this is actually crazy exciting because being able to get a super wide lens without losing, I mean, if you think about a 16-35 and a 24-70, you have a ton of overlap, and I'm really not doing anything with those extra millimeters of focal length. So having that on the wider end makes so much more sense to me, and still keeping an f2.8 zoom. It's still pretty compact and amazing quality, and that is actually giving me quite a bit to get excited about here. So unfortunately, the dose of reality here is that this is a $3,000 lens, and that is a huge number. You're gonna know if that is something you're in the market for right away. However, if you look at like Canon's 11-24, that's also around $3,000. So if you're into maybe not quite in that range and you want to know how this compares to some of the less expensive options like Sigma's 12 or 14-24 f2.8 and Sony's own 12-24 f4, maybe that's a test that we should do to see how this compares to those in reality. However, if you are in the market for this, Sony is really giving us a lot of reason to get excited about this. It really is the best in terms of quality, autofocus performance, the coatings on this are unbelievable, and so really this is a lens that is giving us something that no other lens is delivering on. So I've got some links if you want to go ahead and check this out and pick one up. Also, I do have my favorite gear for the A7 III, A7R III, and again, check out those guides to kind of help you guys get started if you are interested or purchasing any of those cameras right there. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Stay tuned, a lot more to come. Hope you guys are doing well, and I'll talk to you soon.